Faith had always thought she had a handle on people. After years of dating disasters, heartbreaks, and endless awkward first encounters, she'd developed a sixth sense for red flags. So when Loren first messaged her on 90-Day Love Link, a niche app for those looking for whirlwind connections, she thought she had it figured out. Loren's profile had been generic, a photo of him standing by a lake, his face obscured by sunglasses, and a bio that read, "Just looking for someone to share life's simple joys." It wasn't inspiring, but it wasn't off-putting either. Faith swiped right, figuring she'd give him a chance. After all, her best friend Lily had met her husband through the app, and she was determined to prove that not all online connections led to disaster. What started as mundane exchanges quickly became intense. Loren messaged her frequently, morning, noon, and night. At first, it was flattering. "I feel like we really click," he wrote after a week of chatting. His messages were filled with compliments, though one pattern began to stand out. He had an unusual fixation on her feet. Faith wasn't entirely surprised. Loren had mentioned early on that he was a guy who appreciates the details, and when he complimented her sandals in one of her photos, she chopped it up to him being observant. But the comments didn't stop there. "They look so elegant," he wrote about a casual picture she'd shared during a pedicure session. "The way your toes peek out from under the blanket in your morning photo, it's mesmerizing." It was a bit odd, but Faith brushed it off. Everyone had their quirks, right? And Loren seemed sweet otherwise, kind, funny, and oddly vulnerable in a way that drew her in. Against her better judgment, she agreed to meet him in person. They decided on a quaint Italian bistro in Faith's neighborhood. It was her suggestion, well-lit, familiar, and always bustling. If things went sideways, at least she'd have witnesses. Loren arrived 10 minutes early. Faith spotted him from the window before she walked in. He looked slightly different from his photos, taller, thinner, with a nervous energy that made him fidget constantly. When she entered, his face lit up in a way that made her stomach twist. "You're even more beautiful in person," he said, standing too close as he hugged her. His cologne was sharp, almost overwhelming. "Thanks," Faith replied, stepping back subtly. She reminded herself to be open-minded. At first, the conversation flowed naturally. Loren was attentive, asking about her family, her job, her favorite hobbies. Faith found herself relaxing, even laughing at his self-deprecating jokes. But then, as the waiter cleared their appetizer plates, Loren leaned forward, his expression serious. "Do you ever feel like certain parts of your body hold more energy? Like they tell a story about who you are?" His eyes drifted downward, lingering on her feet under the table. Faith shifted uncomfortably, her toes curling inside her shoes. "I'm not sure what you mean." Loren smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Your feet, they're like a map of your soul." Faith forced a laugh, hoping to lighten the mood. "I think my soul's map might need a pedicure then." But Loren didn't laugh. Instead, he reached across the table, his hand brushing hers. His palm was clammy, his grip oddly tight. "I'm serious, Faith. I've never felt this kind of connection before. It's like I was meant to find you." Faith's instincts screamed at her to leave, but she stayed, frozen by his intensity. The rest of the evening passed in a blur, Loren's fixation becoming increasingly unnerving. He made excuses to touch her hand, complimented her feet repeatedly, had asked probing questions about her past relationships. When the check finally came, Faith practically bolted out of her seat. Loren insisted on walking her to her car, and though she politely declined, he followed her anyway. As she unlocked her door, he grabbed her wrist. "Can I see them?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "See what?" Faith replied, though she already knew the answer. "Your toes," he said, his eyes wide and unblinking. Faith yanked her hand away and got into her car without another word. As she drove home, her hands trembling on the steering wheel, she vowed to block Loren's number and delete the app. Faith thought that would be the end of it. She'd had a creepy date. Lesson learned. But Loren didn't disappear. The text started the next day. "I'm sorry if I came on too strong." The first one read, "I can't stop thinking about you." When she didn't respond, the messages became more frequent, more desperate. "Please, Faith. I need to see you again. I can't explain it, but you're special." By the third day, he was calling her nonstop. Faith blocked his number, but new ones kept appearing. She changed her social media settings to private, but somehow Loren found her accounts. He began commenting on old photos, leaving unsettling messages like, "I'll bet those feet have walked through so many stories. I wish I could be part of them." Faith stopped going out unless it was absolutely necessary. She double-checked her locks every night, her heart racing at every sound outside her window. It arrived on a rainy afternoon, left on her doorstep without a return address. Faith hesitated before opening it, dread pooling in her stomach. Inside was a pair of custom sandals in her exact size, along with a note scrawled in shaky handwriting. Faith called the police, but they brushed it off as a harmless prank. "Just block him," they said. "He'll get bored eventually."